Hello everyone, and welcome back to Storytime History. Tonight, we are diving into one of the strangest, darkest, and most unbelievable true stories in human history. A story about a failed student who believed he was the younger brother of Jesus Christ. A man whose visions would ignite a war so massive that millions of people would die, entire cities would burn, an empire would nearly collapse, and yet somehow, most people have never heard his name. But before we begin, make sure you subscribe to Storytime History and turn on notifications so you never miss another forgotten empire, mysterious ruler, or dark chapter of human history. Every week, we uncover true stories that sound more unbelievable than fiction. Now, turn down the lights, get comfortable, and let's travel back to 19th century China, a land filled with poverty, corruption, fear, and desperation. The year was 1814. In a small village in southern China, a boy named Hong Xiuquan was born into a poor farming family. His family had almost nothing, no wealth, no power, no status. But Hong possessed one thing that made him different from everyone around him. He was intelligent, and in imperial China, intelligence could change your destiny. At the time, there was only one real path out of poverty: the imperial examination system. Pass the exams, and you could become a respected government official. Fail, and you remained poor for the rest of your life. For families like Hong's, these exams were everything. So from childhood, enormous pressure was placed on him. Study harder, memorize more, do not fail. And Hong truly believed this was his purpose in life. Day after day, year after year, he buried himself in books, ancient texts, Confucian teachings, endless memorization. He studied until exhaustion consumed him, because he carried not only his own dreams, but the hopes of his entire family. Finally, as a young man, Hong traveled to take the imperial exam. Thousands of students gathered there, every single one desperate to escape poverty. The atmosphere was intense, silent, terrifying, and when the results arrived, Hong failed. It devastated him, but failure was common. Many students failed multiple times before succeeding, so Hong tried again, and failed again, then again, and again. Every failure slowly destroyed something inside him. His family had sacrificed everything for his education. People expected greatness from him, but instead, he became trapped between ambition and humiliation. And then, after another crushing defeat, his mind began to break. Hong collapsed into a violent fever. For days, he drifted between consciousness and hallucination. And during that fever, he experienced visions unlike anything he had ever seen before. He later claimed that he ascended into heaven itself. There, he encountered an old man with a golden beard seated upon a heavenly throne. The old man looked furious. According to Hong, the figure handed him a sacred sword and commanded him to cleanse the world of demons. Then another figure appeared beside the throne, a younger heavenly man. Together, they instructed Hong to destroy evil forces poisoning humanity. Hong saw himself fighting demons with divine fire. He saw blood, judgment, purification. When the fever finally ended, he was no longer the same person. At first, even Hong struggled to understand what he had experienced. Years passed, life continued, but the visions haunted him constantly. And then one day, everything changed. Hong came across Christian missionary pamphlets he had received years earlier but never truly studied. As he read them again, something clicked inside his mind. The old man from his visions was God. The younger heavenly figure was Jesus Christ. And Hong became convinced that he himself was the younger brother of Jesus. Imagine hearing that for the first time. Poor failed student, convinced he had been chosen by heaven. Most people would dismiss it as madness. But history becomes dangerous when desperate societies begin believing desperate men. To understand why millions followed Hong, you have to understand the condition of China at the time. The Qing dynasty ruled over one of the largest empires on earth. But beneath the surface, everything was falling apart. Government corruption infected every level of society. Officials stole money from starving peasants. Taxes crushed poor families. Floods destroyed farmland. Famine spread across entire provinces. And opium addiction devastated communities everywhere. Ordinary people felt abandoned, hopeless, forgotten. For many peasants, life had become unbearable. And into this chaos stepped Hong Xiuquan, not as a politician, not as a military leader, but as a prophet. He began preaching a strange form of Christianity mixed with his own visions and beliefs. He claimed demons controlled China. He claimed the Qing rulers had lost heaven's blessing. And he promised something revolutionary, a heavenly kingdom on earth, a perfect society chosen by God himself. For suffering people, his words felt powerful. They offered hope, purpose, meaning. Followers gathered around him, then hundreds more, then thousands. Soon, Hong created a movement known as the God-worshipping society. At first, the Qing government barely paid attention. To them, it looked like another strange rural religious movement. But they underestimated how dangerous belief can become when combined with suffering and anger. By the early 1850s, Hong's movement exploded across southern China. Farmers joined him, workers joined him, the poor, the desperate, the forgotten. Entire villages pledged loyalty to the movement, and eventually, his followers picked up weapons. The rebellion had begun. Hong declared the creation of something called the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom, and himself, the Heavenly King. This was no longer a small uprising. It became a full-scale revolution against the Qing Empire. Taiping armies spread across China like a storm. City after city fell before them. The Qing military struggled to stop the rebellion, because the Taiping fighters believed they were not merely fighting for land or survival. They believed they were fighting for God. And belief can transform ordinary people into terrifying forces. The Taiping movement introduced radical new laws. They banned opium, banned alcohol, declared men and women spiritually equal, forbade foot binding, promised land redistribution. Some ideas seemed progressive, others became deeply extreme. Strict religious rules controlled daily life. Men and women were often separated completely, and anyone who questioned the movement risked execution. Still, millions continued joining, because for many people, the old world had already failed them. Then came the moment that shocked all of China. In 1853, the Taiping army captured the massive city of Nanjing, one of the most important cities in the empire. The victory stunned the Qing dynasty. Inside the city, mass killings began almost immediately. Qing soldiers were slaughtered. Government loyalists were executed. Blood flooded the streets, and Nanjing was renamed the Heavenly Capital. This became the center of Hong's growing kingdom. For a moment, it genuinely seemed possible that the Taiping Rebellion might overthrow the Qing Empire entirely. Imagine the fear spreading across China. A self-proclaimed brother of Jesus now ruled millions of people. An empire that had dominated China for centuries suddenly appeared vulnerable. And nobody knew how far this movement would spread. But history has shown something again and again. Revolutions often destroy themselves from within. And the Taiping Kingdom was no exception. As Hong gained more power, he changed. The humble, failed student slowly disappeared. In his place emerged an isolated ruler obsessed with divine authority. He withdrew deeper into palace life, surrounded himself with loyal followers, issued bizarre religious decrees, and became increasingly paranoid. Soon, rivalries exploded inside the Taiping leadership. Generals accused one another of betrayal. Executions became common. One of Hong's most powerful commanders was murdered. Then thousands of his supporters were massacred. The movement that promised heaven was slowly transforming into something darker, something violent, something terrifying. Meanwhile, outside the walls of Nanjing, the Qing dynasty regrouped. New generals emerged. Fresh armies were trained, and they prepared for revenge. What followed was horror on an unimaginable scale. Entire provinces became battlefields. Villages disappeared. Cities burned to the ground. Famine spread across the land. Disease followed the armies everywhere. Bodies filled rivers. Starvation killed civilians by the millions. This was no longer simply a rebellion. It became one of the deadliest civil wars in human history. Historians estimate that somewhere between 20 and 30 million people died during the Taiping Rebellion. Think about that number for a moment. Tens of millions. That is more than many modern wars combined. And yet, outside China, most people have never even heard about it. Foreign powers watched nervously as China descended deeper into chaos. At first, some Western missionaries hoped the Taiping movement might spread Christianity throughout China. But eventually they realized Hong's beliefs were wildly different from traditional Christianity, and many became horrified by the violence unfolding across the country. As the years dragged on, the rebellion slowly weakened. The Qing armies adapted. The Taiping leadership became divided, and the Heavenly Kingdom began collapsing from within. By the 1860s, the end was approaching. Nanjing was surrounded. Food shortages devastated the city. People starved inside the walls. Desperation consumed the kingdom. And Hong? He still claimed heaven would save them. According to reports, he believed God would miraculously protect the city. But miracles never came. In 1864, Hong Xiuquan died. Some historians believe illness killed him. Others believe poisoning or suicide may have played a role. The exact truth remains uncertain. But after his death, everything collapsed quickly. Qing forces stormed Nanjing. The city became a slaughterhouse. Thousands upon thousands were killed. Buildings burned across the capital. The Heavenly Kingdom was destroyed, and the rebellion that once threatened to reshape China ended in blood and ashes. Today, Hong Xiuquan remains one of the strangest figures in world history. Was he insane? A visionary? A revolutionary? A cult leader? Perhaps he was all of those things at once. He began life as a poor village student desperate for meaning. And somehow, he nearly destroyed one of the largest empires on earth. His story forces us to ask uncomfortable questions. What happens when millions of people lose faith in society? What happens when suffering meets charisma? What happens when desperation collides with belief? Because history shows us something terrifying. People will follow almost anyone if the world around them feels broken enough. The Taiping Rebellion became one of the deadliest conflicts humanity has ever witnessed. Yet many schools barely mention it. Maybe because it sounds too unbelievable to be real. A failed student claiming to be the brother of Jesus, creating a heavenly kingdom, and plunging China into one of the bloodiest wars in history. But it happened, and somewhere inside this story lies a warning about power, about fanaticism, about suffering, and about the dangerous line between faith and madness. If you enjoyed this story, make sure you subscribe to Storytime History for more forgotten empires, mysterious rulers, dark historical events, and unbelievable true stories from the past. And let me know down in the comments, do you think Hong Xiuquan truly believed his visions, or did power slowly consume him over time? Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next story.